You could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2024 trying to make your book better. And would it be a good investment? Maybe. Here's the truth. Professional editing, writing, and publishing services can make a huge difference, but only if you go in with the right mindset, knowledge, and strategy. So today we're going to continue our series on publishing and money by talking about the most important ways to maximize your investment on your book in 2024. Stay tuned. If you're ready to get your story out in the world, but you've just been waiting as you're not sure whether the budget's going to fit or the timeline or the support, I get it. Every author is different. Every book is different. And that is why in December, we are rolling out 3 different tiers of service. You are not going to want to miss this announcement when we open to the general public. And if you want to be the first to hear, head to the link in the show notes, take the book strategy quiz. Once you do that, you're going to get a ton of helpful information now, and you're going to be the first to hear when we make these new tiers of service available. I can't wait, and I can't wait to hear about your book. Back in August, I made a video where I went through all of the expenses that anyone has to go through to publish a book. So whether you're publishing with a traditional press and just wondering where they're spending all of that money that isn't going into your pocket, or if you're self-publishing and you need to figure out how much it's going to cost to get this book out, that video is going to be so helpful. If you haven't watched it yet, pause, head back, watch that one, then come back to me. But if you are familiar with some of the things that are going to go into getting your book out, what I want to talk about is how we can make sure that we approach those things in the best way possible. Because here's the thing, all those things the traditional press is spending money on, a lot of those things are happening in-house for them, or they're working with contractors that they have worked with dozens, if not hundreds, of times before. You, as a self-publishing author, are not going to have the benefit of all that experience, all of the kind of consolidation of using those services over and over to get better deals. You are winging it effectively. So there's a few things I want you to think about as you're going into this process that are really going to make such a big difference in how much value you get out of those services. So those are 1, figuring out what services you need and exploring whether you can get some kind of a package or a bundle. 2nd, making sure that you're thinking through the timing of those services, because sometimes we can spend a lot of money doing the wrong thing at the time we should be doing something else. And 3rd, of course, you know I talk all the time about mindset, and I want to talk about mindset here too, because I have seen self-published authors waste a lot of money because they didn't really know what they were going into. So let's talk about each of those 3 things in turn in this video. First of all, let's talk about how to think about the services that you need and how to package those so that they can fit into a bundle that's going to save you a little bit of money, save you a lot of time and headache. So the first thing, what do I mean when I'm saying bundle or package stuff together? Literally, I just mean what it sounds like. Figure out the things you need and see if there is a company that will sell those to you at a discounted rate if you're buying a whole commitment of services. For some reason, I find that when people head into the publishing industry, they very often see those packages as scams. I have got all kinds of reasons I think this is. One of them being, I know there are so many self-published and traditionally published authors who have very strange investments in everything being DIY. So anytime you're talking about paying for a service, they're going to tell you to run. It's a terrible investment. They don't have to invest if they don't want to, but if you want your book to be excellent, I would highly, highly suggest looking into professional support that you can get. Okay, end rant on that. But when I'm talking about a package, I'm talking about the same thing that exists in all kinds of industries. If I get a haircut and then I go to a different salon, get my hair colored, go to a different salon for my blowout, that is going to cost me way, way more than if I get a cut, color, blowout, right, at one salon. Same thing's true with insurance. If we can get all of our policies from one provider, a lot of times we'll save some money. That is the same thing in publishing. A lot of companies will offer a whole range of service. You can work with them to pick the package that's going to make the most sense to you. And the first of those that I want to talk about really only applies if you're writing a nonfiction book. So we're usually talking to people on this channel who are writing either memoirs or story-based leadership books. Either folks in that camp, one of the things you are absolutely going to need if you're doing a traditional book deal is a book proposal. Now, this can get confusing because a lot of times when you Google, how to get a traditional book deal, you're going to come up with a lot of stuff for fiction authors. Nonfiction's a little bit different. All nonfiction, regardless of what it is sold on proposal. And what that means is when you get your agent and your agent takes your book to the publisher doesn't want to see the whole book. They want to see first a proposal. A proposal is effectively a marketing document. It's going to give some information on who you believe the audience is, how you will help the press reach that audience as the author, kind of an overview and a general sense of what the book is doing, what its goals are, and then it's going to have a few sample chapters. Now, here's where you can really make the smartest investment, and that is bringing someone on to help you with that proposal. One reason for this is really, really simple, and it just is if you work with someone who professionally writes book proposals, who has some experience under their belt, I promise you, they know what the industry is looking for. That doesn't mean they're going to take over your book and force you to change it to something that you didn't have in mind. It just means that they're going to be able to help you find the most effective angle. Well, of course, when you compare an investment in a professional book proposal with you trying to kind of DIY and kind of figure out on Google or maybe buy some books, of course, that is going to take so much time and you may or may not get a result. Versus if you can get a professional to write your book proposal, they're going to be able to streamline that process. They're going to make it way more efficient. And unfortunately, they probably are going to have a better chance at getting that deal than if you just try to DIY it. Just kind of the way that it goes. But here's the other thing that you can think about when you're making that investment into a book proposal. You are not only getting a proposal, you are also getting someone to help you figure out what the outline of that book is. That's a standard part of most book proposal services. What's the shape of your book? What's the flow of your book? What's the pacing? All that stuff that has to be talked about in the proposal. So if you hire someone, you're going to get that whole outline that then you can take and write your book yourself. Second of all, you're going to get those sample chapters. Different companies are going to do this differently, but typically when we work with people on book proposals, we just pick the first 3 chapters. Well, that's 3 chapters that you're going to get support to figure out. Either you can have the professional write it, or you can get coaching from that professional to make sure that the chapters are great. But how helpful would it be to get those first chapters out with some support, with encouragement, with the guidance, with the tips and tricks that a professional can bring to your book? You're going to get such a value out of that early work of shaping the book from your book proposal. So this is an example of a package deal that you've got to be kind of thinking ahead to, right? Because if you wade through that whole book on your own and then you think, oh, okay, well now I'm going to get a book proposal, you have missed out on that package deal, right? You're not getting all of the support that you could if you had started there. So that's the first thing, is if you're thinking of a traditional deal, number one, best advice, go find someone to help you with the proposal before you even start the book. I promise it is something that you're going to want to do to make sure you've got the best odds of success. Okay, well now let's talk to our self-publishing folks. Okay, I often find that self-publishing folks really know that they need an editor. But we're not ever, if we're not in the industry, it's really hard to know what type of editor do I need, because there are many, many types. So the 2 I want to talk about in this video are copy editors and developmental editors, because that really is the rub of figuring out who you need. Usually it's going to be one or the other. If you are publishing as a self-published author, so you're going to DIY it, you must get a copy editor. I cannot emphasize this enough. You must. Copy editors are going to tighten up your language. They're going to find continuity errors, places where you've kind of jumped between two areas of your life and kind of forgotten to norm out whatever the description or the characterization or whatever it might be. They're going to point those issues out. They're going to show you places where the reader is going to stumble over the language you've chosen or get confused by it. They are the last step before you're going to get your book proofread, all the kind of more technical stuff. This is the last creative eye that's going to go on your book if you're a self-published author. So how do we bundle up copy editing when it's this last link in the chain? Again, you got to think ahead. So since you know that you're going to need copy editing for your book, and I know you are, if you can start thinking about who you want to work with way back early in your process, then what you can do is look for copy editors who either work for a company that also offers coaching, or you can look for copy editors who themselves are book coaches. Now, you got to be kind of careful here because you do want your copy editor to be someone who is not familiar with your book. So you don't want the same individual person copy editing if they helped you write the book. It's not industry best practice. They're going to miss stuff because they know the book too well, right? We want a cold eye copy editor. But here's the way you can do that. So yes, a lot of copy editors are freelancers. Now you still may be able to get some kind of a package worked out. It's going to be harder with a freelancer. But there are also a lot of copy editors who work with companies. And a lot of times those companies will offer a high level coaching package that then if you stick around for a longer haul, say 6, 8, 9 months, that you can get either a discounted copy edit or sometimes even you can get a complimentary copy edit. That depends on the length of manuscript and the difficulty, but can't hurt to ask. But the point is, if you can bundle up coaching, then you can get all that developmental stuff that I was talking about with the proposal, the help get with your outline, help with those first chapters early on. And then you're setting yourself up to go straight through to a copy editor. You'll know and trust the company because you've been working with them. And you're going to get a little bit of a break a lot of times on the cost of that copy editing. So thinking about how we can package things up. The other thing that you are absolutely going to need if you are a self-publishing author is you're going to need a designer. Now, typically for the interior layout, if it's just a standard straight up nonfiction book, a memoir, for example, you don't have a lot of kind of call out boxes where it's like a little gray box and you've got, bullet point tips, or if you've got that kind of stuff, you probably will need a layout designer. Most of the people that I work with, it's a memoir straight up. You can probably do the layout yourself. I say probably. There's an excellent program called Vellum, Vellum. You can check them out. It's a really affordable option and it's pretty foolproof to run your manuscript through. Get your layout design. You've got different options for how it's going to look, what kind of style you want. But cover design, do not DIY your cover design. Don't do it. I promise you, people who are readers are going to be able to spot that you DIY'd that from a million miles away. So design is a place that we really want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about our investment. Now, cover design, particularly if you want custom art, that can be pretty pricey. So you want to be prepped for that. Especially if you want custom art, you're probably in $4,000 or $5,000 at a minimum by the time you've got the art and the design done. But here's one thing that you can do. If you want to think about how you can kind of save some time and some money and also get the best results, one thing you can do is coordinate your cover design through a company that also does your metadata. Now, we haven't talked about metadata, but that is essentially going to be your keywords that are listed in the back end of your online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatnot. It's going to be your BISAT categories and your Amazon categories. It's going to be your, a lot of times your descriptive copy, just meaning the text that's going to go on Amazon next to your book so that people can kind of see what it's about, that kind of thing. And things like your author bio can sometimes be lumped in there where you are getting a tremendous amount of value along with that design. Some companies actually always include that, but that's something to ask about. And if you know you're going to need that, if you know you want support on your metadata, which is a good idea, lumping that in, packaging or bundling that in with your cover design can be a really great way to maximize the value on that investment and really, really make sure everything is as it should be. Okay, so that's the first tip, is we've got to be thinking about bundling. What are all the services you're going to need, and how do you make sure that you're getting all of them from professionals that you trust, and ideally professionals who can share that vision among themselves so that you're not having to re-explain and, kind of renegotiate it every step along the process. So my second tip is to think about the timing. Now, this overlaps with our package. We've talked about some of this a little bit before, but I want to emphasize it here again. If you can think about when you need those services, you are going to get so much more bang for your buck. And the best example of this, as I was talking about earlier, developmental versus copy editing. Remember, copy editing is where you're going to get the tightening up of your language. You're going to get checking on continuity errors, things that jump out to the reader and are going to stop them from kind of continuing smoothly down the page. Versus developmental editing, which is going to be much more about what's the shape of the story, what's the order of the events, how are you making sure that everything is compelling and engaging in terms of the bigger picture. So developmental editing is not going to be, individual track changes. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not. Kind of individual playing with the little line level stuff. Developmental editing is usually going to come with a letter that's going to explain kind of all the things that you want to address. Sometimes it'll have a copy that's got comment bubbles in the margin, but it is not that close level stuff that a copy editor is doing. Which means we need to make sure we've got the developmental edit done before we get into the copy edit. Timing here matters very, very much, and here's why. Too many times I see that people have gotten a manuscript copy edited that was never developmentally edited. They have not shared it with a single person until they send it to the copy editor. Now, what's going to happen? One of two things. One, the copy editor is going to get started on it, reach out to you and say, this actually needs a developmental edit. Do you want me to do that instead, if there's somebody that offers both? Or they're going to go ahead and do the copy edit. That's what you hired them for. Except that then once they send it back to you, there's going to be so many big picture things that you're going to have to revise that you're going to have to get it copy edited again. Because here's the thing. Once we copy edit it, every single revision we make has the possibility of adding in new errors. A lot of copy editors will do a follow-up pass to just make sure any revisions you did, that they're going to catch any additional stuff. But with each new look, that copy editor is getting less and less effective, and they're probably still charging you. So what you need to do then is think about, just like I said in the package item, think about the timing on this. And one really excellent way, like I said earlier, get yourself a coach that's connected to a copy editor. Now, a coach is not the same as a developmental editor, but a lot of times coaches will have either kind of a premium package or an add-on where they're going to look at your work as you're going. Not a developmental edit, which is usually the whole manuscript, but you're still going to get those eyes on that draft, making sure that as you're working through your outline, as you're working through those first chapters, you are really being thoughtful about how your story fits together and how you're taking people through either your life or your experiences as a leader, whatever it is you're trying to get across. And the other place where timing is really, really going to matter, and this is a place that I see a lot of first-time authors kind of struggle with, is with your marketing and publicity. Now, when you're thinking of hiring a publicist, which often is an excellent investment, it's high ticket, but it is often something that's going to pay for itself. If you are hiring a publicist or a marketing company, they are a lot of times going to want a 6-month lead up to your release. Does that mean that after your book's released, you can't hire a publicist? No. In fact, sometimes it can be really helpful to have the book in hand, depending on how it's selling. That your mileage may vary. Decide what's going to work for you. But when we're thinking about working with a publicist, we're usually thinking about a big lead up. So you're going to be getting different kinds of media features and interviews, maybe speaking engagements, depending on kind of who you're working with in the route. leading up to the book. That has all kinds of snowball effects because as you're getting all of that publicity, people are pre-ordering the book. That's sending signals to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc., that this is a great book. They're going to want to stock and promote. It has a whole waterfall effect when you plan it correctly. The problem is most people, especially DIYers, we're so overwhelmed through the whole process of writing the book, right? When you finish that, you don't usually even have energy to think about the next step, let alone think about it during the actual process of writing before the book even feels real. But you need to. If you're going to hire a company to do this, they are going to need pretty significant lead time. So either you're going to want to finish the book so that it's all ready to go, but it's not listed anywhere yet, or you want to get in touch with a company early on in your writing process. Kind of once you feel certain that you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, you can start interviewing people, seeing what kind of wait list they have, and making sure that you're going to have somebody that you know that you have already researched and talked to when you are ready for that step, about 6 months before your book's going to come out. So with all of this stuff, it can be really, really hard to wrap your head around the timing and how you need to be kind of thinking about when to contact all of these different professionals, where to find them. So with timing, the other thing I would say, if you can work with somebody that's going to coach you start to finish, that is going to be the easiest and most efficient way to do that. I understand that's not going to be for everybody, but that really my ultimate tip would be find somebody who can walk you through it. A book coach or a program like our program Memoir Method, a program that's going to hold you and hold your hand, take you through that whole process is really going to be so important for your return on your book's investment. Okay, and then you knew I was headed here. The last set of tips I've got is for mindset. Now, I know if you are writing a book, you are a strong person because it's hard. And if you're writing a memoir in particular, you are dealing not only with all of this writing stuff, all of the unfamiliar publishing world, and also probably some of your own feelings of not really being sure kind of how to say the different things you need to say, how to work through some of those emotional barriers just to really make sure you're telling an effective story. I know you've got your mindset, but there's another piece here that I see happen, particularly with DIYers, whether you're going for self-publishing or a traditional deal. And that is, for whatever reason, our culture has told us that we write books by ourselves, that writing is one person, or it's shut in the Overlook Hotel, hopefully not, or, at your computer on the weekends and the door's shut and it's kind of dark in there, you've got your tea. Oh, it's so romantic. But here's the thing I see happen when people try to write their book all by themselves, and I want to use a story to illustrate this. So I worked with a man, this has been years ago now, but he had written a novel, a work of fiction, and wanted feedback on that. He had not read through the draft. He went through the draft kind of one chapter after another. He finished that last chapter. He didn't want to read back through it because he was nervous. I get that. But so he didn't read back through it. He didn't do any revisions. And then he asked his wife to proofread it. She was excellent at grammar. So his wife proofread for grammar. We skipped our developmental edit. We skipped our copy edit. We went straight to proofreading, just looking at those grammatical things. And he was understandably really proud of this book. I mean, I think it was maybe 120,000 words, which is pretty standard for a novel. It was really an accomplishment. I was really proud of him for having gotten that book out. But the problem was he had not even talked about it. So he had no idea how his audience was going to react. He had no idea what kind of help he needed, what kinds of areas were his weaknesses versus his strengths. He had no idea even how to hear someone critique the book. So as we talked about it, my role was just to suggest kind of what he did next. I was suggesting that he go through these various editors. You've heard me say this. I was suggesting that he make sure he get help with his querying because he was wanting to query agents. It was so overwhelming for him to hear that feedback because he had not ever gotten any feedback before. In his mind, this book was kind of this perfect image. But then, as he got feedback and he got my suggestions, he went back through and started looking at it. It was devastating to him because he hadn't gotten any of that support earlier on. And now he could see all of these mistakes that he was making over and over and over through the book. And if someone had told him, he could have fixed them as he went through. But he didn't have anybody. This is the mindset of this individual, isolated, self-driven DIYer author. And the problem is, while you are demonstrating how strong you are by doing this alone and figuring it out all by yourself, you are also cutting off your nose to spite your face, because you're also making this book about you. It's only in your heart. It's only right within your own closed circle. But that is not what books are for, friends. Books are for others. So anytime we're approaching this writing journey, just thinking about ourselves as this insular author, we are really preventing our book from doing the good it needs to do in the world. Because the only way you're going to do that good with your book is to get it out of your head, out of your hands, and out to other people. So that can be professionals. You can get feedback from, this would be called a beta reader, or somebody that's going to look at the book before it's released. Any combination of those. But the mindset thing is key. If you're going to maximize your investment, both of money and your own time, you have got to be thinking about this book as something that's going to go out into the world. You've got to have that strong author mindset that you know why you're doing this. You know why you're spending all this time. And the only way you're going to accomplish that goal is if you can let go of your own sense of pride of authorship, of ownership over that book, and really come to terms with the fact that a book is always a community project. Always. Whether that community is the people around you, professionals, or all of the above, you are always, always, always leaning on your community to get that book to do what you want it to do. So we got to start embracing that. That means when you get feedback from your copy editors, we've got to be open to that. You've got to know that that is a person that is reading your book, not in exactly the same way your readers will, but in a way that is giving you that external feedback, in a way that is seeing something beyond that insular vision that you have of your book to extend, to give you some kind of a proxy of how your actual readers will read it. Same is true if you get feedback from friends and family. If you're not going to take it, don't ask for it, right? We've got to make sure that we are open-minded and ready to hear the things that can make our work better. And we've got to hear them as about our work, not about us, right? So with all of these tips, as you're thinking about how to maximize your investment in your book's potential, my number one piece of advice is to make sure you have support from start to finish. So think about bundling, think about timing, think about mindset. I know you're going to be able to do this, whether you get a more full service support where you're getting some done for you services, or whether you are DIYing with support. You can do this. I know you can. Reach out if we can help, and otherwise, happy writing, my friends. I am on a mission to make sure that everyone has access to the support and tools that they need to tell their story and tell their story well. And that is why I am so excited to roll out 2 brand new offers that are going to fit so much more comfortably into a whole range of budgets. Now, the first one I can't share with you quite yet, but if you are looking for a community of support and skills and tips and all of the things you need to move your memoir forward, keep an eye on this channel. But the one I want to tell you about today is the Change Maker package. This is a brand new package we're offering that is going to give you all of that ghostwriting, all of that editing support that you want, all of the help to get your story on the page, even if you're just not a writer. So that package is only available to our newsletter subscribers right now, but if you want to be the first to hear when we open it to the general public, I hope you'll head over to the link in our show notes and take the book strategy quiz today. That's going to help make sure that you get all of the information you need about what the path your book should be on and how to sign up to have us help you get it out into the world. I know that you are ready for this and you deserve to have your story out there. So sign up for that quiz right now. The link is in the show notes, and I can't wait to hear about your story.